the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and on the factory floor, I've got Patrick LeClerc. How you doing?
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We were just clarifying that you're Patrick, the speculative science fiction writer, and not Patrick, the poet. I don't think there are too many Mookie Spitzes out there, which makes my nom de plume pretty unique. But apparently, you've got a doppelganger.
Well, that's useful if I ever have to deny that I was doing something. I can always say it must have been that other guy.
Exactly. Or if somebody doesn't like anything that you do, just blame the other Patrick. But welcome aboard. I found you on Substack, or I guess we found each other. You're a speculative science fiction writer. You've been gunning it for a while. I found some of your shorter works provocative and interesting.
Thank you.
And I'm eager to chat science fiction, indie authorship, AI, the big ball of wax in science fiction. Project Hail Mary just launched. So it's an exciting time for science fiction. Can you give us a little context? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got speculative, how you got fictional, and some of the stuff that you're working on and want to share.
All right. So I've always been a big fan of science fiction and fantasy. I've always read a lot of it, and I've always been interested in making, creating my own worlds, doing my own writing. So I guess technically I started back in college. I was a history major, but I wrote a lot of stuff in my spare time. I connected with a couple of groups of writers at college. And back in 1999, a few friends of mine and I started a speculative fiction webzine, short stories. It was Quantum Muse. We ran it for a few years back in the early 2000s. People would submit short stories, we'd edit them, select them. And we did that for probably pretty consistently for probably 5 or 6 years. And then life came up. People didn't have the time to put into it, and it kind of fell by the wayside. But after that, I took some of the stuff that I'd started on that. I expanded them into some novels, and my first published science fiction novel was Out of Nowhere, which is a speculative fiction based on a character who's immortal and able to heal others. And I had him hiding out, working as a paramedic, so I could draw on a lot of my my work experience as a paramedic. And it seemed like a good place for somebody who could do that to be, because you could hide out. If your patients get better, that's a good thing. People aren't surprised by it. And it enabled me to pull in some of my history interest too, with flashbacks, because he's immortal. I got some action adventure stuff in there. So that was.
So you relied on your lived experiments as an EMT, you and David Lee Roth. What year did this one come out?
That came out in 2012.
2012. All right. And he's immortal. So what's his kryptonite? What's your character's vulnerability?
So he doesn't have a specific vulnerability. He can be injured. He just heals really well. So it's not that he's invulnerable to anything. It's just that he can recover from pretty much anything. And he's missing part of his earliest memories. Like, he remembers a lot of things from history, but not why he can do what he can do, not where he came from. And then he manages to run into somebody who seems to know something about his past. And he winds up becoming hunted as part of this book. And he has to learn his past as well as confront these threats. And so it's kind of interesting, because he's grown used to fading away from things. He's seen enough history that he's seen that people who can do uncanny things are often persecuted. He's seen witch trials. He doesn't want to get involved in that.
No, he's like Methuselah. He's been around a while. How old is the guy when the novel begins?
So it's never specifically stated. Going back to his earliest things that he mentions, he's at least 2,000 years old.
All right. Reminds me a little bit of the Star Trek episode. Remember that one with the immortal character, and Kirk and Spock check out his studio, and he's got what look like originals from Michelangelo and Picasso, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I did that. I just hung out with those guys," right?
So it's that kind of thing. I get to pull a lot of history stuff in there. I get to have a lot of fun with that. I called it my Mary Poppins book because these are a few of my favorite things. I can just pull in all things I enjoyed. I played with it. I had a lot of fun with it.
Did you self-publish the book?
I did. I shopped it to agents for quite a while, and at the around 2010, 2011, it was just becoming really easy to self-publish, and independently published books were actually doing pretty well. You could build an audience with that. So my feeling was that I could either spend a lot of effort shopping it to agents who may or may not get a publishing interest, or I could spend that same self-promotion energy into promoting it directly to buyers. And from
amen to that.
Yeah.
Terrific.
And from doing Quantum Muse, I knew a lot of other writers. I knew a lot of editors. I knew a lot of people who worked in it. So we formed like a kind of a collective where we would proofread each other's stuff, beta each other's stuff. My wife is a graphic designer, and she was able to do a lot of work to help me. She kind of knows what she's doing. She's my tech support. So I really had a decent support system, more so than a lot of people have starting out. So I was able to do it that way. And that's the book that I wound up getting into the finals in the SPFBO, the Self-Published Fantasy Blog-Off, back in, when was that? 2018, I think. I was a semifinalist in that one.
Right.
So.
All right. So that's an illustrious start. You self-published. You had your wife as your backup.
Yeah. And that is this book, which she designed the cover from. Again, a lot of glare. A lot of glare.
All right. Out of nowhere. Looking good.
Yeah.
All right. So what motivated you to go from just thinking about being an author to actually being an author? Writing a book is challenging. Everyone's got it on their bucket list. I'm going to write that book. Yeah. Everyone makes excuses. Oh, I don't have time to write that book. But it takes actual commitment and actual talent and hours and hours of grinding it out.
That's what it is. It is a lot of work. But to anybody who says they don't have time to do it, when I wrote that book, I was working full-time. I had a side hustle part-time, and my wife and I had just had our first child. So I was writing this in between. I was writing this when the kid was napping. I was writing this in between calls on the ambulance. I wrote it in bits and pieces and then edited it when I had a chance. There's time in your schedule if you want it to be there, and if the writing is cathartic for you. For me, it was kind of a little bit like therapy. So it was actually helping me to decompress and get things out by getting them on the page. So that was a motivation to do it.
Yeah, I think you're on point, which is if there's a will, there's a way. And if you really want to do it, you do it. And timing is everything. And sometimes when you have the least amount of time is when you make the most time to do what you love.
Yeah.
So what was next?
I did I went in a completely different direction. My subgenres are basically an exercise in attention deficit disorder. I went, because I've always read a wide variety of different kinds of books. My next one was a military science fiction. It's near future space marine crew out in the patrolling the asteroid belt, because near-ish future. I set it in 2075. I figured that we would be mining, the asteroids for resources, and I wanted to catch the idea of like a boomtown out on the fringes of civilization, and I tied into a lot of like frontier tropes, with the Marine Corps out there patrolling and trying to keep the world safe for the universe safe for democracy and capitalism. I threw a lot of banana war type stuff into it. I had a lot of fun with that.
It's a little bit. I hate it when authors are likened to other authors or other pieces of entertainment, and I'm sure you're insulted by it too. But this does smack a little bit Expanse-y.
Yeah,
maybe you were Expanse before Expanse was cool.
It definitely falls in that subgenre, I guess. So I played with that. I enjoyed that a lot. Then I did just a sword and sorcery buddy rogue fantasy series of shorts, and that I owe completely to having read way too many of the pulps, the Robert E. Howard stuff, the Fritz Lieber stuff with Fafhrd the Grey Mouser. I wanted to take just short, pulpy, fun adventures with a couple of thieves in a rundown city. And that one turned into Broken Crossroads, which, again, I had a lot of fun with. And
what are some common themes that stretch across? Because you're crossing genres and you're zigging and zagging. Yep. Daniel P. Douglas is also on Substack and an author. They're actually a set of twins, and they write under the nom de plume, and they are equally diverse, like a Western sci-fi book, and then a noir thriller post World War II. But they have a common theme of basically screw the man, be suspicious of control, and don't let the fascists beat you down. That more or less is their recurring theme. If you could describe your own writing thematically in that way, what's tying it together?
It's all of my stories it's the celebration of the outcast. All of my characters fall somewhere outside of what's expected mainstream. They don't play well with others. They don't fit into society as a cog in the machine. So they've chosen professions and ways of life that allow them the freedom to stay true to their own values and not become a faceless drone. And sometimes it's a struggle with that. My Space Marine characters sometimes struggle with what being in an organization, but maintaining their individuality. It's much easier with the rogues, because for them, it's the most important thing is self-determination, independence, and nobody's going to tell me what to do. If I'm going to risk my life, it's going to be in a cause I care about, I believe in. So there's a lot of attempting to, do the right thing regardless of what great organizations and society tell us. And I guess I would throw it into to compare it to other media. I think Firefly would fit really well into that kind of universe. It's that kind of thing. There's a code. There are lines you don't cross, but they're my lines. They're not lines I can give.
Well, good for you. You're bringing it to life. And how does it feel to be writing for over a decade, seeing all the changes in society and the evolution of publishing and even science fiction and fantasy?
That's been very interesting. Just
a lot of changes.
Yeah. Because things just, it's almost impossible to keep up with the way the industry is changing, just because the amount of time it takes to actually write. You can't write to trends because the trends change faster than you can write to them.
especially now.
Yeah. So I think you've just got to stay true to your vision, to what you like, what you want to do, and keep doing that while being mindful of the market. Look at the market, look at what's happening. Adjust.
Do you write to be read, or do you write to write?
I write to write. Yeah. And I'm writing. Obviously, we all want to be read. We want to share our story. We want people to read it and like it and identify with it. But I'm not willing to change what I write about for more mass appeal. I'm interested in telling the story I have to tell. And again, I want to play in all the sandboxes because I have all those influences.
Yeah, I tend to be that way too. Sometimes it's hard for an audience to pinpoint who you are from a branding point of view.
Yeah.
If you're writing this kind of science fiction set in this setting, then people get accustomed and know you as that guy.
Yeah.
And then if you switch gears, then it's a little bit unexpected. And if you're all over the place, then people tend to be confused. Yeah. And in order to gain traction, most folks need to know you as one thing that fits into their limited mind share of you, let alone the genre. So I have that challenge too. I tend to rant on politics on video, and I write essays and op-eds. I do memoirs and plays. And I wrote a science fiction novel first in the series. So people say, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing? What's your brand? What's your idea?"
What I would love people to look at more is authors tend to be very pigeonholed. But you look at someone like movie directors, movie writers. You can tell Steven Spielberg's movies are all Steven Spielberg movies. But he's done World War II movies. He's done science fiction movies. Done aliens.
Yeah, they all have a happy end. Yeah, and are driven by spectacle.
Yeah, there's a through line, but they're not just a series of the same kind of thing. And so I think I try to look at it like that. I try my touch and my spin on it. But I just did my most recent one was a gas lamp steampunk Cthulhu kind of adventure in a fictionalized Victorian setting, because I wanted to play with the history and all the things that were going on, all the changes in the world at that time between Industrial Revolution, the changes by the age of colonialism and all that kind of stuff, coming in with like the end of slavery, emancipation in America, the emancipation of the serfs in Russia, all these social changes, you're starting to see the rise of different political movements, and plus, tentacles and sword fights and airships. Because that was too rich not to play with. It's a total departure from everything else, but the characters you would recognize if you had read from the other things, because it's that same.
I agree with you, and this tendency to accommodate the audience, especially when it comes to who you are, betrays, in a sense, who you are, especially if you want to be that diverse and that expressive. Why limit yourself based on the expectations of people you don't even know?
Yeah.
So here to that, and I think it's great that you just embrace your own creative whims. How have you responded to the AI revolution that's been around about 3 years now? It's becoming entrenched to the point that it's transformative. And there are all sorts of pressure points coming from every direction. They just canceled a bestseller, not in the science fiction genre, but it was, I believe, a romance novel that was pulled because AI apparently wrote snippets, if not much of it.
Yeah.
So
it's a thorny issue. It's one of those things where we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. The technology's out there. It's going to be used. I would never have an AI write a scene for me, because I think that cheapens the whole act of creation. That's why I want to write, is because I want to create these worlds. I want to play with it. I enjoy it in the same way that I imagine a sculptor enjoys, interacting with the clay. That's what I do it for. That's my rush. AI has a lot of uses, and I think that because it's new, exciting technology, people try to use it for things it wasn't intended for. And I'd rather see it used. It's got tremendous use. It's great at pattern recognition. We use it in the medical field all the time for diagnostic things, and it's made huge leaps forward. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And at the same time, I think I would rather see AI pick up my garbage and clean my floor while I write plays than have to go to the widget factory and work on an assembly line while AI writes plays and operas for us. And I think that's how a lot of people feel about it. And then there's a tendency.
In practice, do you use it for research? Do you use it for world building?
I don't.
Dialogue, nuance.
No, I don't use it at all in my writing. I really don't.
Zero.
I don't, because if I want to do research, I'll do research, because AI scrapes other research and sometimes it puts strange interpretations on it. So I'd rather look at primary source stuff. And as far as dialogue, I love dialogue. Dialogue is one of my favorite things. It's like the parts that I struggle, I like dialogue and I like action scenes, and the other stuff I kind of slog at. And that's actually one of the things. My first draft, there's almost no description, so I don't like writing description. I'll do dialogue and action, and then I have to go back. My wife's like, "Do you have any scenery in this book at all?" I'm like, "I guess I gotta go back and put some in." So I can see, I haven't done it, but I can see the appeal of maybe I'll have the machine write the parts I don't like. I see how that gets there, but then it turns into a slippery slope. And like we talked earlier about the amount of effort and blood, sweat, toil, and tears you put in it, everybody has a book in them. And if you just have to describe the vague outline of your book to ChatGPT and it pops out a book, that kind of cheapens the act.
It, in a sense, makes it meaningless. No pain, no gain. I tend to be a blood, sweat, and tears type of writer, and I love the lived experience of sweating it out.
Yeah.
William James, the psychologist, was actually the brother of Henry James. He wrote a lot about how, when you're thinking, then your brow kind of pinches, and then you rub your chin when you're being contemplative. So it's a body muscle memory kind of reflex. And just the act of sitting there and typing and being in that immersive meditative state, to me, is deeply pleasurable and rewarding, even if it's painful and difficult and hard. And to me, the resistance between me and the keyboard, what's in my head and what makes it on the page, and me trying to get those in alignment, where the real stuff happens. And when I'm crafting a story, to your point, I've got characters with clearly defined goals and weaknesses. They're thrown into a world, and then they get punched in the face over and over again because they're trying to accomplish what they want in a world that's unforgiving and unfair. And in that churn, the story unfolds.
Exactly.
And I might have a general idea of my characters, and I know what they want, and I know their opposition, but how it unfolds has to be organic, because if I'm not surprised, then the reader's not going to be surprised. So to me, it's all on that. And if I use AI, it's for kind of super Googling.
Yeah.
Like I do the hard science fiction stuff. So I want it to be accurate. I love digging in there because I'm a bit of a geek myself. I love the science part of it. So in the old school days, I'd Google and then I'd have to read journal articles and do a lot of follow-up, and it would be time consuming. Now I could do the Chat GPT or the Claude. It aggregates a lot of science, and I could just get to it faster. But I take that data and I put it into the story, and then I make it my own. So it leads me down pathways I might not have thought about before. And it helps me embellish things a little bit more rapidly but it's not like I'm cut and pasting from the bot into my book. It's like I'm learning and processing and then integrating an expansive understanding of science and the world in a way that to me is organic and doesn't violate this passion for sweating out a story.
Yeah.
And putting myself in the shoes of the protagonist who basically is getting his ass kicked throughout my entire book.
Again, it's great at pattern recognition. It's great at aggregating things. It's great for assessing a huge pile of data that would take you as a person hours and hours. It can do quickly, so that it has its uses. And again, I go back to, I'm still a full-time paramedic. I look at how our protocols have changed. And with the advent of just computers and pattern recognition and being able to cross-index a treatment to its results, the rate at which we're improving our protocols and our way that we address different
quick
things,
response diagnostics, even
it's potentially amazing.
And life savings. I worked for a medical software company back in 2003, 2004. Okay. This was in the era of the Trios and the Palm Pilots.
Yeah.
They weren't even connected to the internet. You had to download the stuff from your computer. And it was a medical software company specializing for paramedics like you and EMTs. So you would be in the field, you'd be in the van, you'd roll out, and then you could check for drug contraindications on the fly, dosing, how to handle a particularly nasty kind of situation that demanded response. And there was technology being used at the point of care for emergency services. And I can only imagine now with AI that it's helping save lives and it's helping you do your job better.
It definitely is. It definitely has its uses. So, but again, it's like anything else. It's a tool.
Maybe more interesting than just the tool is your lived experience being a paramedic. You must have seen some wild things in your years of being out there.
Yeah, a few things. So a lot of them make it into the book or make it inspire things that go into the books.
Yes, inspire things in the book. Obviously, you don't want to compromise anyone's medical information or circumstance, but that kind of visceral lived experience is jet fuel for a writer.
Exactly.
Which is interesting stuff. Do you partake in science fiction and other modalities? So as a writer, you read.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you've got your favorites. And as a science fiction fan, you probably are into the movies and the whole kabang.
Oh,
what rocks your boat?
I'm a big fan of what has happened with television in the past 10 or so years with the advent of the long form series and the less of the network stuff. I mean, obviously we have tremendous affection for the old network science fiction stuff, the tracks, the Fireflies, the Buffys, all that kind of stuff was great. But now that things are going directly to streaming services, they have so much more freedom. In fact, of how long the story is, they're not worried about having to set up for next season. They're less constrained, and so some stuff, it's dumb, but Twisted Metal was a lot of fun. If you ever saw that series, it's really dumb, but it's a lot of fun.
Which platform is that on?
I think is it Hulu? It's a streaming service. I think it's Hulu.
Yeah, that sounds like a Hulu-esque kind of deal, even though they just got absorbed by Disney.
Yeah, and things like the animated Arcane was brilliant. And what was the other one? Blue Eye Samurai was brilliant. So they've done some great things with animation. And again, animation, it's a lot of artificial limits that would be really hard to film are easy to animate. So it's a medium that has a lot of freedom, and I really like that. So that can be a lot of fun.
And it's another area where AI is encroaching.
Yeah,
Better,
it's everywhere. It's popping up everywhere. It's dude. I bought a light bulb at the store, and it turned out to be a smart light bulb. I just wanted a light bulb that could go in a switch with a dimmer. So I brought the thing home, and it's like you log on and download the app. I'm like, I don't want to turn my light bulb.
That's talking to you. It's sharing relativity theory with you.
It's probably listening to us right now. It's going to know what my next book is. But so I think it's intruded kind of everywhere.
In an annoying fetishy kind of way. I think we'll eventually get over it.
Yeah.
Hopefully before it, takes all our jobs and kills us.
Yeah.
But it is a revolution in the truest sense, if for no other reason that all these trillions of dollars in equity are flying all over the place.
Yeah.
And clearly the adoption curve hasn't caught up to the raw enthusiasm of the investors.
No, and that again, that's fitting a pattern. We saw that with the .com bubble back in the 90s, mid to late 90s. We saw that. Somebody sees something promising and new. This is the gold rush. Everybody grabs a pick and shovel, goes to Alaska. Most people wind up starving. Somebody hits it big, and it's actually making money is the one selling the shovels. You got to be the guy selling the shovels.
Well, look at the internet bubble too. Yeah. My favorite example is they laid all the undersea cable. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And then it sat there fallow for I think over a decade because there was no real demand. And now the World Wide Web is dependent on this infrastructure. So it eventually caught up. I think the data center issue is trickier. I call it Pro Tools versus AWS. So when Pro Tools came out for musicians, you no longer needed a studio. You could just record at home. So it took the equivalent of cloud-based infrastructure and made it local on your own machine. It put all these studios out of business and it empowered individual musicians, and it just exploded.
Yeah.
So it transformed the whole industry. That's the Pro Tools model. The AWS model is Amazon finally got profitable by putting all this data processing in the cloud and then selling it out.
Yeah.
So it was based on scale and the cloud. So I think the jury's still out on artificial intelligence. There are going to be individual LLMs that live on phones and devices, and we don't even really need the cloud for the sake of security and personalization? Or are we just going to plug into the mothership and have it do everything for us? I think the jury's still out. We'll see. Maybe it's a combination of both. But it is captivating. And as far as writers go, I think writers shouldn't worry too much about this stuff if you really have integrity.
Yeah, no. Until AI can get overworked and divorced and have a drinking problem, we're going to be fine.
That's a great way of looking at it. That's a very quotable clip, which is, until we get the murder bot. That terrific story by Martha Wells, which really catapulted her career. Martha Wells was writing for decades, and she did even some of the Star Wars kind of ghostwriting kind of serials. And then I think she was ready to quit. She was over it. And then Murderbot just kind of appeared to her, this sarcastic killing machine that was just over it. And that really took off for her.
Yeah.
And I think it took off because it is this combination that we're talking about. It's the AI entity that really just wants to have a shot of bourbon and a cigarette. So we'll see how that shakes. I think that's Apple TV show. Speaking of repurposing, I think they've redone that with Peter Sarsgaard. Remember they used to make fun of him on Saturday Night Live? He was hanging out with pirates. Yep. It's Peter Sarsgaard, and they'd ask him why, perchance, he's hanging out with pirates. Oh, that was good stuff. But anyway, I don't think AI is as big a deal as people make it out to, especially for creative souls who really give a shit.
Yeah. And another concerning thing to me is people are too ready to call something out as AI when they're not sure. And that kind of can almost be a scarlet letter.
Yeah, like a cancel culture kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like if you M dash,
Yeah.
you're guilty.
I M dash all the time. I love the M dash.
I love M. I've been using M dashes for decades. I love the M dash. And then there were great examples.
Earliest stuff. There's M dashes, and that was years before AI could have told me to do it. So
yeah. Look at Thomas Pynchon's Mason Dixon, which is like its homage to 19th century writing, and it's got tons of capitalized nouns like the old German.
Yep.
It's loaded with ampersands and M dash comma, right? Yeah. All over the book. So you can't say Pynchon was using AI
exactly. So
in the early 90s. Get out of here, right? Yeah. So a lot of people are doing that witch hunt kind of stuff.
Exactly. And I think that that's dangerous. I mean, if you leave AI fingerprints all over something and it can be definitively proven it's AI, then yeah, there's an ethical consideration there. But I would be very hesitant to brand somebody's writing. Well, it feels like AI to me. It's like, well, AI trained on the literature that's out there. So you're not seeing necessarily plagiarism. You're seeing what AI drew its source material from. And we've all been in
artifacts and fossilized curios of other writers, other creative. AI didn't make the shit up. It basically they chopped up the internet into tokens, assigned weights, right? And then does matrix math in the transformer engine to connect it, just like autofill for Google, only in a much more sophisticated. It's predictive.
Yes.
So, but it's very convincing.
Yes.
It does a pretty good job. That's why you got all those data centers to crunch all those permutations, like quadrillions of iterations of everything that humans have barfed out over the last few centuries. So it's impressive technologically. But to your point, it's not anything that people haven't done, just kind of reconstituted.
It's like a really good librarian in a really big library. So it's not writing its own books, but if you want to find a book about 10th century cooking techniques, it knows exactly what shelf to go to.
Yeah. Or if you're writing a novel with 10th century cooking techniques in it, what might take you several days and a few dozen books, you do with a few prompts, which is, hey, chatty bro, reenact a cooking scenario from the 10th century, and bloop, there it is. So if that rocks your boat and you want to concentrate on other things, namely characters and situations and expressing your lived experience through your art, then maybe you have more time for that. I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. And, there's always a whiplash in society. Everybody makes a big deal. They say the government should get involved. Whenever anything goes wrong, we should regulate everything. Well, there's a zeitgeist. People just get sick of stuff.
Yeah.
So they've already had a negative whiplash to all the AI slop generated by Sora, the application created by OpenAI. That backfired a little bit. All of a sudden, everyone can create 10-second videos featuring themselves and their friends in whatever situation. It's interesting for about 12 seconds, and then it's just kind of boring.
Yeah.
And then it flooded everyone's social media feed. And I think we've reached a point of saturation and annoyance.
Yeah.
So this self-policing, I think, is the most effective way to curtail a lot of the excess when it comes to bad AI. And I was joking with another guest that one reason AI sucks so much is because we suck as communicators and writers. It's just mimicking our bad habits.
Yeah.
How much of human conversation is really just regurgitated human LLM crap? Hey buddy, how you doing? How is your day? Oh, it's great. Like, listen to people talking about their favorite sporting event. Listen to people just kind of shooting the shit. When families get together, it's pretty much interchangeable, the conversation. I mean, the emotions are there, that's the point. But when it comes to the actual language and communication of information, we're just sharing tokens. And I think maybe we're allergic to our own bullshit. We see that mirroring in the bots and we don't like it.
Yeah.
So what's next? Are you a movie fan? Did you see Project Hail Mary?
I did not. Yeah. I've been.
Do you like Andy Weir? Have you
I
read
do.
him?
I do. I'm a fan of Andy Weir. I like his stuff.
I like him too. I thought The Martian was great. Hail Mary is great. I missed the middle one. And, the character Grace is just like the character from The Martian, only a little zanier. So, he's got his template and he goes for it.
You're always got
the everyman who can somehow do everything stretches the boundaries of credulity, but does so in a really heroic.
Yeah, but I think we've always been attracted to that. We've always been attracted to that. That's always been a aspirational thing. The whole idea, the Renaissance man, the person with
the hero.
Exactly. And it was, I think that was more of an embraced ideal. We kind of fetishize specialization to a certain point, I think, somewhere in our development. But if you go back and you look at some of the big thinkers of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, they were all, I mean, that's where the term Renaissance man comes from, but they were all polymaths. They were all, they did a little science. They did a little politics.
For sure.
They did some military stuff.
Newton was an alchemist.
Exactly. It's so the idea that somebody knows everything there is to know about rocket propulsion, that's great. But can you explain James Joyce? Can you, use
figure out how to communicate with an alien?
Exactly. Right. So there's I think there's a definite human preference for somebody that can do a lot of things. Could you survive if you're marooned? Could you survive? Can you build a shelter? Can you figure out what's safe to eat and what's not? Can you do medical procedures with what's available to you? And we've always kind of respected that.
I think his heroes are cool. And I think this idea that there's no real bad guy, that the bad guy is physics and nature and Mars and astrophage, very, very innovative and creative. You get not one alien, but you get several.
Yeah.
And you get parasitical aliens from the microbiome,
exactly,
which have amazing qualities like absorbing unbelievable amounts of energy, traveling at nearly the speed of light, and infecting stars. What a great idea. Yeah. That is very, very good. And Rocky is an intriguing alien too, a great idea. Personally, I just saw the movie, and I don't want to spoil it with spoilers for anyone listening, but I do want to raise the contrarian flag because everyone is raging about this film. I hated it. I hated it. I thought they ruined the storytelling, the pacing. I'm gonna just rant and gripe on one aspect which underlies my entire critique. Never once in this 2.5-hour steaming turd of a film did I feel any gravitas or threat or even wonder. You know how science fiction brings out that
exactly.
Whoa. And in this case, the stakes couldn't be higher for humanity. The species is going to go extinct if this mission doesn't work. The cataclysm is worldwide. And never did I feel any of that watching this film. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah. And thank you for allowing me to vent. But have you? I didn't even ask you if you've seen it.
I have not.
don't let me bias you.
No.
Again,
Yeah.
all you need to do is scan it, and you have 5 stars. It's the greatest science fiction. To me, they ruined it, and maybe I'm biased in that I read the book
Yeah.
before,
That's always.
and I had my mental construct. But I read The Martian before I saw that, and I loved Ridley Scott's adaptation. I thought it was mature, great science fiction, well told, well paced, and I was never bored.
Yeah. And
I'm sitting there watching Rocky like it's Lilo and Stitch.
I think that one of the big things that it comes down to whether I really enjoy something or not, it comes down to characters and story. You can put as much spectacle in as you want. You can have all the bells and whistles and things that you can dump that kind of spectacle on it. But if there's no heart, it's not memorable. It doesn't really sit with you. So that may have been
That's what killed me. I guess their interpretation of Grace.
Yeah.
Like he was such a frivolous bonehead in ways, it's just, I'm sorry. I don't mean to shit on this year's science fiction extravaganza on the Science Fiction Factory podcast, but I refuse to be a lemming leaping over the side of the cliff of everyone's aesthetic.
So you're gonna be the kid in the crowd pointing out that the emperor has no clothes.
Yes, I'll do that. But I was just curious what you might, if only because it's so timely. I have just endured that motion picture this weekend. So what's your hopes for your oeuvre? How many books total now do you have?
Novels I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I have 6 novels. I have a number of short stories I put out, and I'm working on the sequel to Beckoning Wood, which is my Victorian gas lamp steampunk Lovecraftian delightful melange of things I enjoy mash up.
That's terrific. I mean, I'm like you. I create content each and every day. There's nothing that makes me happier than just cranking stuff out. And how much time and effort do you usually put into it? It's having that amount of content is more than just a hobby. You're a full-time paramedic.
Yep.
You mentioned. So you dedicate a lot of time and effort to writing stories.
Yeah, I do. But again, like I said, it's a way for me to process things. It's a way for me to there's your lived experience, which is all your input, all your interaction with the universe. And then one of the ways that I particularly process it is I'll sit down and I'll write, I'll put a character in the same situation, and I'll talk about how this influences a character's growth or worldview. And it's kind of like therapy. So I think it's just something that I do for me. And times that I'm not really into it, I kind of get a little aimless and bored and really don't know what to do. So I kind of need that writing to keep me on track, keep me focused.
Yeah, you're a kindred soul, totally. If I'm not like blasting out my opinion on TikTok, I'll do a rant. In my kitchen, I'll do a selfie video, and I do like 2-3 a day on average, sometimes more. If I don't do that, don't let it out. And if I'm not actually writing and physically typing and communicating in that kind of way, and if I'm not posting and reposting and doing these podcasts and other video, then I feel like I really don't have a purpose. And I can have a very successful business day with my consulting work, and I could have a good day as far as my personal relationships with family and friends, but there's really no equivalent to expressing myself this way. And it's very therapeutic, it's immersive, it's meditative, and it gives me purpose. And it sounds like it does for you too.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is really what it's all about. So that's good to hear, and I think it's inspirational for a lot of younger writers who are starting, who have a lot of anticipation about success or lack of it, other people's opinion. Should I get an editor? Should I get a professional cover artist? Should I pursue an agent? Should I go through all of these mechanisms that are outside the actual process of writing and creating itself?
No.
And a lot of people get discouraged and freak out.
It's a lot. It is intimidating. And the one thing that I think defeats a lot of people, it's such delayed gratification if you're focused on the end goal. If like, I want a $50,000 advance, and I want somebody to make a movie out of my book. Best case scenario, that's years down the road, and you're putting in hours and hours of, I'm not going to say completely uncompensated, but delayed compensation, and you have to be willing to put in that time, not knowing if that's going to sell at all, not knowing what it's going to do.
Yeah, and so even if you put in that and it reaches fulfillment for you, at least down several of these milestones, there's no guarantee of lasting success.
Yeah.
It could flop.
Yeah.
And it might not be transformative for your life. I have a former colleague and a friend, and he wrote a treatment, got an agent. He has a pretty good social media following, so that helped boost him up there. He got, treatment, agent, peddling it to various publishers, got a mainstream publisher, got an advance to finish the book, finished the book with an advance, published, got big reviews from people with, related expertise.
Yeah.
And, that's it. I recommended to him that he take the year off and just tour, go on book tours and signings, like give it a little oomph. And he was under the impression that his publisher would help him a little bit with the marketing.
Yeah.
And I told him from the beginning, don't expect that. They're not going to do shit for you. They're a big name. They're a big name. You can list top 5, 10 publishers. His is up there. Household name.
Yeah.
And it never went to paperback even. I think there's a warehouse full of his books, and he did everything right.
Yeah.
So just load your PDF up to KDP or Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
go to the Bowker, the Bowsker site or whatever, and get your own personal ISBN number, right? Put it in there. And then within a few days of uploading it with your cover, you've got a book on your desk, and it's yours. And then give it your best shot for getting it out there. But I think that's a pretty good formula. Have you since pursued the more traditional publishing route?
Not really, honestly, because like I said, I would rather spend my time writing. And if I'm going to push and market my book, I would rather just push and market it to the buyers rather than try to push it to an agent. Push it to, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, people have had success with it. It's just not.
It's not my intent to shit on traditional publishing.
No. Oh,
and I know that they just came out with the writers survey, indie writers survey. That's another podcast I did where I go through the metrics. And you need to advertise, and you're spending half of your income just keeping the engine going. You make some money off the book, then you put it back into advertising to keep the book out there. And you need to turn it into a business if you want to do it.
Yeah.
And whether or not you want to do it, keep writing. Writing is publishing. Celebrate the writing. Stop worrying about AI. Stop worrying about getting an agent. And do it and see what happens.
And it is that's what I would rather focus my time on, writing the next book rather than flogging the current book. And I think a lot of us are like that, and that's why so many of us are struggling with the marketing, because that's not necessarily our strong suit. That's not the way we're wired. So
yeah. Yeah, and struggle with it if you want to. I mean, I get in moods. I get into a mood where I'm all into it, and then not.
Yeah.
So, honor your mood, honor what you're into, and then focus the goods on what's good, which is the actual creativity and the satisfaction that you give yourself doing it, and throw it out to the world. Have a little trust in the fates. So I think that that's the ticket to real happiness, as opposed to fulfilling expectations, most of which aren't even yours.
Yeah.
So I think that that's inspirational for our younger writers. If there's a book in your oeuvre that you would recommend to people who are first getting turned on to your stuff, that exemplifies who you are, your themes, what you think is some of your best, maybe most accessible and fun work, what would that be?
Accessible, fun, easy would be the Broken Crossroads. Because there are a bunch of, it's very episodic. It's more like collected short stories with a through line. I mean, you read them quickly. They're quick. They're bantery. There's, traps and monsters and treasure, and it scratches that old pulp itch. If you're just looking for something quick. If you're looking for what I think is probably and again, I go through phases, but I really think that my writing's getting elevated with Beckoning Void, because it does take the soul of the swashbuckler feel and puts it through the social and political lens of a huge period of societal change, which I think we're in right now. So I think you can draw parallels. So
great. We'll put links in the description.
Excellent.
So through your little bio, so people can check you out, and subscribe to you on Substack too.
Thank you.
Right? Why not? So thank you for making time, Patrick LeClerc.
Thank you so much for having me.
Speculative fiction novelist, going at it now for a while. 6 books and counting. What's your next one? What are you working on?
Like I said, I'm doing the sequel to The Beckoning Void right now, and after that, I think I'm going to probably play with a little urban fantasy again, because I've been away from that for a while. I just got to keep making the rounds.
Terrific. It's a real pleasure and a joy hanging out with a kindred soul who just loves getting the words out on the page, and having that catharsis and that meditative experience that makes life have a purpose and brings joy to us, and hopefully a few others, right?
Absolutely. Yep. That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Like, comment, share, folks, and check the links and get some Patrick's speculative fiction. Thanks for listening and watching Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz. Till next time.